Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear students of Standard 10th, welcome to the online lecture series for the subject of Science 2. So today we are going to start with chapter number 3, Life Processes in Living Organism Part 2. And this chapter includes the topic of reproduction, a very important life process in all living organism, types of reproduction, and modern technology, what is reproductive health, and population explosion. So these are the topics which we are going to discuss today. Okay. So in order to understand, let us start with the topic. In this part, as you know that this part is usually removed, so we are not supposed to do this. Now here we have studied various life processes in previous classes. All those life processes, that is nutrition, respiration, excretion, sensation and response, that is control and coordination, are essential to each living organism to remain alive. Beside this life processes, one more life process occur in a living organism. It is reproduction. So reproduction does not help the living organism to remain alive, but it helps to maintain continuity of the species of that organism. So here the continuity of the species of that organism is because of the process of reproduction. So in that sense it becomes one of the important life processes, in all living organism. Okay, so there are some pictorial images given over here, as that of plants, the animal, okay, this unicellular organism, how they reproduce. So we are going to understand how reproduction take place in unicellular organism and then in multicellular, and then we'll go to plants and then to human beings. Okay, this is how we are going to understand. So basically, if you can want to know how the reproduction is divided, the process of reproduction is basically divided as asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So we'll understand this one by one. So formation of new organism of same species by earlier existing organism is called reproduction. So when a new species is formed from the earlier one, the process is called as reproduction. Okay, this is clear. And it is one of the various important characters of living organism. It is also one of the various reasons responsible for evolution of each species. In living organism, reproduction occur mainly by two methods. Those two methods are asexual and sexual reproduction, as I said you. So we'll understand this, what is the difference between them. So let us start with asexual reproduction. Process of formation of new organism by an organism of same species without involvement of gametes is called as asexual reproduction. So when there is no involvement of gametes, and from that process when a new organism is formed by the earlier organism, that process is called as asexual reproduction. So we know what are gametes. It was taught to you in the life processes in living organism part 1 how gametes are formed by the process of meiosis. Okay, and gametes have haploid number of chromosomes. So these gametes also called as germ cells. When the gametes are involved, that process is called as sexual reproduction. When there is no involvement of gamete and the new organism is formed from the earlier one, that reproduction is called as asexual reproduction. Okay, so this is how both are different. As this reproduction does not involve union of two different gametes, the new organism has exact genetic similarity with the reproducing organism. Another important point of this type of reproduction, that the new organism has exact genetic similarity. This is uniparental reproduction. Only one parent is involved in this reproduction, and it occurs by mitotic cell division. Okay, so mitotic cell division leads to asexual reproduction, whereas meiotic cell division leads to sexual reproduction, because meiosis leads to the formation of gametes. An absence of genetic recombination is a drawback. Okay, so genetic recombination does not take place, it's a drawback, whereas fast process, okay, this process take place very fast. So whereas fast process is advance of this reproductive method. Okay, one of the plus point you can say for this method is it's take place very fast, and absence of genetic recombination is a drawback. So we get no genetic variation in this type of reproduction. So let us start with asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms. Okay, so the first type is binary fission. So binary fission, the name itself says when something divides into two, it's called binary fission. Okay, so it's an activity where you are supposed to take some warm water in it, and from a pond having stagnant water, so you will find some organisms. If you take the slides, prepare a slide and keep it under the microscope, you will find some microbes to be dividing. If you take the example of amoeba over here, okay, so it's divide many as well as paramecium. Okay, so you can see how they are dividing themselves into two. Okay, so it's a single parent amoeba, this is a daughter amoeba, and then you get two amoeba or amoebae, and then we have paramecium, okay, single, and this is how they are dividing themselves into two, so you get two paramecium. Okay, so this is called as transverse binary fission, transverse. Okay, so it is getting cut off into in transversal manner. Okay, and here it's simple binary fission, you have no plane, they divide themselves in any plane. And this one, longitudinal binary fission. Okay, so it is take from the axis or the longitude. So example is of euglena. Okay, so binary fission is usually performed by living organism during the favorable condition. Okay, when they have favorable condition, at that time they divide themselves. Okay, so we have a simple binary fission, transverse binary fission, longitudinal binary fission. Okay, remember this binary fission, division of a single unicellular organism into two. Okay, so moving ahead, multiple fission. So asexual reproduction by multiple fission is performed by amoeba and other similar protists. Okay, amoeba stops the formation of pseudopodia. Pseudopodia is a false leg of amoeba, and thereby movements whenever there is lack of food or any other type of adverse condition. So they stop the formation of pseudopodia, and thereby their movements also get stopped. And whenever there is lack of food or any other type of adverse condition, so they start doing, they start making, or they start becomes round and forms protective covering around plasma membrane. They make protective covering, and this such in encysted amoeba or any other protist is called as cyst. Okay, so it's called as cyst. They form a covering around them, and this is called as cyst. And many nuclei are formed by repeated nuclear division in the cyst. So what happened at this particular time, they start forming multiple nuclei. Okay, as nuclear division take place, and it is followed by cytoplasmic division, as well as the division of cytoplasm take place, and many amoebulae are formed. And this way many amoebulae are formed, they remain encysted. Okay, means they remain inside that covering till there are adverse conditions, and cyst breaks up or breaks open on arrival of favorable condition, and many amoebulae are released. So cyst is formed during adverse condition. Inside the cyst, many nuclei are formed due to nuclear division, as well as the cytoplasmic division take place, and due to which many amoebulae, what are amoebulae? You can imagine as a daughter amoeba, and there you get on a favorable condition, this cyst breaks up and this amoebae are released. Okay, so you can see a multiple fission is being explained over here, the pictorial diagram. So here is the parent amoeba, the formation of cyst, and inside the cyst many nucleus. Okay, you can get to see in this favorable condition open up the cyst and this daughter amoeba, they come out and they start develop themselves into new parent amoeba. This is how multiple fission take place. Fine. Now here another type is called budding. Okay, so in order to understand budding, so you will see that yeast cell perform budding. Okay, yeast particularly they perform budding. A small bird, the meaning of bird is, so small birds coming out of many parent cells. Okay, so these are small birds. You can get to see the birds are formed. Okay, the bulging take place, the formation or of the parent yeast cell. It bulge out at one of the end, and the yeast cell produce many two daughter nuclei by mitotic division so as to reproduce by budding. Okay, and the new bird, whenever it's formed, then it detach itself and many such daughter yeast are formed. So this bulge is actually a bird, and one of the two daughter nuclei enters in this bird. After sufficient growth, bird separates, it detaches itself from the parent cell and starts to live independently as a daughter yeast cell. Okay, so budding is a name itself says the formation of bird, and the new bird is formed, and then it starts forming multiple birds, and that is how the new birds come out, develop into new yeast parent cell. Now, this was a asexual reproduction in unicellular. Now we are going to start with asexual reproduction in multicellular organisms. Okay, multicellular. So here, let me say you this part is eliminated, this paragraph. Okay, so we are not supposed to do this. So let us understand fragmentation. The word itself says you fragmentation, the formation of fragments, and then it divides itself. This is a type of asexual reproduction occurs in multicellular organism. In this type of reproduction, the body of parent organism breaks into many fragments, and that's why it's named as fragmentation. And each fragment starts to live as an independent new organism. This type of reproduction occurs in algae like Spirogyra and sponges like Cycon. Okay, so as you can see, this example which is given of Spirogyra, okay, it's a big ribbon like structure. So its fragment itself, it's into two new fragments. The process is called as fragmentation. Okay, and it is usually found in multicellular organism. Now moving to regeneration, another type. So it's a lizard breaks up in discards some part of its tail, and in emergency we know that we have seen in this how lizard do this, and discarded part is regenerated after a period, and this is example of limited regeneration. Now there are under certain situations an animal like planaria, okay, breaks up its body into two parts, and thereafter each part regenerate. Okay, so if you break any of the part, so it's each part have this capability to regenerate the new one from the remaining part. Okay, so if you can see, the planaria is broken up into multiple pieces, so the upper part can produce the new one, the lower part can produce the upper one. Okay, so this is how this planaria have regeneration capacity, each part of it, and they can form the new planaria. This is called as regeneration. Okay, moving ahead, again there is budding in multicellular organism as well. We had seen budding in unicellular, whereas the budding is also found in multicellular organism like hydra. So in case of hydra, under unfavorable condition, a specific part of its body and outgrowth is formed by repeated division of regenerative cells. So again there is a formation of bud. The process remains same. A bud is formed. Okay, you can see here the dermal layers and digestive cavity of budding hydra are in continuity, okay, with those of parent hydra. So the many of the process are in connection with the parent hydra, and parent hydra supply nutrition to budding hydra. Budding hydra separate from parent hydra and starts to lead an independent life when it grows up and becomes able to lead an independent life. So as it grows and grows, it detaches itself. Now it's able to lead its own life. So the bird first in a stage take all the nutrition from parent hydra, and then it detach itself and form a new parent hydra. So this is how budding take place in multicellular organism, and you have to remember the example of hydra over here. Moving ahead, vegetative propagation. So here, reproduction in plants with the help of vegetative part like root, stem, leaf, and bud is called as vegetative reproduction. So there are some plants, okay, where their parts have this ability that they can start up with a new plantlet from their parts like root, stem, leaf, bud. Okay, that's why it's named as vegetative propagation. Like potatoes is performed with the help of eyes on tuber, whereas bryophyllum, okay, it is performed with the help of birds present on leaf margin. Okay, this is the leaf margin. They can lead to new plant. Okay, in case of plants like sugarcane and grasses, vegetative propagation occurs with the help of birds present on the nodes. Okay, plants like carrot and radish perform vegetative propagation with the help of roots. So they can perform with the help of roots as well. Potato, okay, radish, carrot, fine. So this is how vegetative propagation take place. Now the last one, spore formation. So in the spore formation, you know that the fungus, how the fungus grow. The fungus grow on, you know, the stale food like chapati, the piece of bread, and on keen observing this fungus, you get to see this structure under the microscope. So these are the spores of the fungus, okay, which break up, and the new spores are being developed with the fungus. So once the spores are formed, sporangia burst, okay, sporangia, this bulging one, and spores are released. Spores germinate in moist and warm place, and new fungal colonies form. Okay, so spore formation is also one of the example of asexual reproduction in multicellular organisms. So here we have finished the asexual reproduction in multicellular organism, okay, as well as in unicellular. So this part, I request you to go through your textbook, read this part, okay, and next time we'll see the further part of this chapter. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.